6. We talked about last week, we talked about a prophet is without honor in his own town, and how Jesus says some kind of weird, kind of cold things about his family. And then Jesus sends out the 12 disciples. He sends out the 12, and I think that that's kind of a culmination of that idea that we've been working on of turning bad soil into good, and that he sends them out, and it's recognizing everything that was happening in the parable of the sower, that some people are going to accept it, some people aren't, that some people are going to hear you, and all of that stuff. You have all that whole range, but also that God is with you and he can turn bad soil into good. And I think part of the examples of that, he gives them power to drive out demons and anoint the sick and heal them and things like that. So I think that's that making bad soil into good that we see there. And I kind of think that's the end of that section, and we kind of start a new thing now. And the next story we have in here is odd. It's an odd little story. I have some I can talk about it, but I still really haven't figured out why this story is even in here. like over there. I think the reason why this story is in here, the one about Herod, is I think Herod was such a looming presence in people's mind share when these stories were originally being crafted, that to include him would be to be doing a disservice. I also think that it's saying something about like corrupt politicians, in that everyone kind of wants Jesus to be a politician, but it's not his way. And I think it's kind of showing the corruptness of when you kind of get power in the office and all of that stuff. So I think that could be some of it, but I don't know. That's just me having conjecture. So let's kind of read through this. This is Mark chapter 6, beginning with the 14th verse. And I'm going to read through 29. So, King Herod heard about this, for Jesus' name had become well known. Some were saying, John the Baptist has been raised from the dead, and that is why miraculous powers are at work with him. Others said, he is Elijah, and still others claimed he is a prophet, like one of the prophets long ago. But when Herod heard this, he said, John, whom I beheaded, has been raised from the dead? For Herod himself had given orders to have John arrested, and he had him bound and put in prison. He did this because of Herodians, his brother Philip's wife, his brother Philip's wife, whom he had married. For John had been saying to Herod, it is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. So Herodias nursed a grudge against John and wanted to kill him. But she was not able to, because Herod feared John and protected him, knowing him to be a righteous and holy man. When Herod heard John, he was greatly puzzled, yet he liked to listen to him. Finally, the opportune time came on his birthday. Herod gave a banquet for his high officials and military commanders and leading men of Galilee. When the daughter of Herodias came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his dinner guests. The king said to the girl, ask me for anything you want and I'll give it to you. And he promised her with an oath, whatever you ask, I'll give it. I will give you up to half my kingdom. And she went out and said to her mother, what shall I ask for? The head of John the Baptist, she answered. At once the girl hurried in to the king with a request, I want you to give me right now the head of John the Baptist on a platter. The king was greatly distressed, but because of his oaths and his dinner guests, he did not want to refuse her. So he immediately sent an executioner with orders to bring John's head. And the man went, beheaded John in the prison, and brought back his head on a platter. And he presented it to the girl, and she gave it to her mother. On hearing of this, John's disciples came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. Okay, it's an odd story. All of a sudden, we kind of switch gears and we talk about John here, and I kind of think it's talking about Herod and how he's completely feckless. Like that's he's this man of great power, yet we see at a whim he's giving power away to people he shouldn't be giving it to. At a like, even he's had dodgy relations in order to get his now current wife, who's obviously not the best influence on him. There's all kinds of history here, like, so it kind of alludes to what's going on at the top there. The Herodias, it was his brother Philip's wife. So what happened to his brother Philip, And so like and Herod was one that was a bit conniving when it came to other people and the power that were near him. So he I think it's just showing how feckless this all is. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about any of this, Gloria? Yeah, like it's kind of a weird. She says she never really thought much about it. It's a weird little section here, and I think the death of John the Baptist would be looming strong in the heads of the original readers and writers that are writing this. I think less so than ourselves, but the fact that John the Baptist dies in such a pointless way, from a girl who shaked her bits well enough to attract, like the attention of all these people, right? And that's why John the Baptist died, because the leader of the Jews at this point isn't strong enough to say no. Like, so and what's interesting is that it could be, as I'm kind of thinking about this as we go through, it could be a reflection of just the absurdity of them killing Jesus later, and how it's really not based on much. It's based on the whims and wants of power. And if we get anything out of it, like, I think it's many times we make stupid decisions just for the whims of power ourselves. It's
politics haven't changed much over the years.
No, it hasn't changed at all. It hasn't changed at all. Like, that's like the amount of people that want power and will do anything for it is disgusting.
Frightening.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And so that's, and so I think that's probably the reason why it's in here. It still seems odd, and it's a big story. Everything in Mark is condensed and fast, and it's a lot of the story. So I think people were just thinking back then, like, this is a huge issue, and we're just separated from it now and can't see the hugeness of it that was going on. But I think what we can see is just rampant corruption, and that rampant corruption just continues on as we continue. Now, when we think about the power of politics, and we think about all of that, we get into our next story, and I do think they are connected. They are connected here. So you have Jesus feeds the 5,000. So we have to have in our mind kind of the idea of that there is just corrupt politics all around, and these feckless politicians are just using their power in ways which only pleases them. It doesn't serve anything else besides that. Yeah, it sounds like today is what Gloria said. So have that in your mind as we go into feeding the 5,000. Okay, so verse 29, on hearing of this, hold on. Hold on. Coley knows what I'm doing, and something is not working. So I need to help her. 1 second.
Go for it.
Oh. She's calling me from a weird phone too. Hey. Did you stand by? It won't record? Take the battery off and put it back on. It's in the bottom. It's a clip. And it like slides down or slides up or something like that. The battery's on the back, but the clip's on the bottom. Yeah.
11 inches.
Okay.
So my guess was about a foot size. And he'll say
Open, like take the viewfinder, pull it up so it's pointing up. Not the screen, the viewfinder, and then you can slide the battery right in. Yeah, pull it out and pull it up. Pull it straight out about the back. No. Okay.
Can Gloria hear us? I wonder. I can read.
Hello. Okay. All right. Bye.
Can Gloria hear us?
Yeah, Gloria. Yeah,
I
Gloria.
can read.
I'm back. I'm back now.
Okay.
I'm back. It was just Coley needed to do basic troubleshooting on a camera, and I had to be with her on the phone while she did it.
Well, that's okay. If we can troubleshoot when you have a call, one of us can read. I can read, and as long as she can hear.
All right. Gloria said she was reading the footnotes.
Oh, I don't have footnotes.
I was checking how much snow we had. We had 11 inches.
Okay, so Herodias, so she was like on her third marriage here. So she was married to her uncle, and then she married another uncle. Yeah, so she's been being passed around for a while. But that sounds like a Royals thing anyway, doesn't it? Like the way they do marriages and all that stuff. It's all for power and show and like so. Yeah, so she was passed around a lot anyway.
600 wives and 300 concubines.
Yeah, exactly.
And it apparently didn't matter if they were relatives.
Yeah, no, it does. Well, you don't want to mess with the line. You don't want to mess with the line. Got to keep that line pure. Like all that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All right. So we'll start off with verse 29. On hearing of this, John's disciples came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. And then verse 30. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all that they had done and taught. So they've come back now from their journey. Then because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. But many who saw them leaving recognized them and ran on foot all the towns and got there ahead of them. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. They were sheep without a shepherd. It's a dig at Herod there. By this time, it was late in the day. So his disciples came to him. This is a remote place, they said, and it's already very late. Send the people away so that they can go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. But he answered, you give them something to eat. And they said to them, that would take more than half a year's wages. Are we to go and spend that much on bread and give it to them to eat? How many loaves do you have? He asked. Go and see. And when they found out, they said, we have five loaves and 2 fish. And then Jesus directed to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. And so they sat down in groups of 100s and 50s. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples to distribute to the people, and he also divided the 2 fish among them all. And they all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces of bread and fish. The number of the men who had eaten were 5,000. So there's a lot going on. Does anyone notice anything, I don't know, specific that stood out to you during this reading? So what stands out to me is the disciples come back, and you can obviously tell that they have had an impact, like that they are working in Jesus' name and all that stuff, and they have definitely had an impact, and people are beginning to notice what's going on, and the people recognize them, and Jesus is like, let's go somewhere remote so we can get away from all these folks. So they get in a boat, and you can kind of, like, the way Mark writes is it's very descriptive. You can almost like see the crowds of people like running on the shoreline, kind of going to where they're going to go, and they beat them there. And they're like, oh my goodness, there's all these people here. It's getting late. We can't get away at all. And it's like send them away. And I already mentioned it, but Jesus says he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And if you remember, the kings and all that were supposed to be like shepherds. So Herod is supposed to be like a shepherd, and we just talked about how feckless Herod is. And so, so that's obviously a dig at Herod there and all of that. So then what's funny is, and the very next story is also kind of funny, but the disciples are like, listen, send them away so that they can go buy themselves something to eat. And Jesus says, you give them something to eat. you do that. And that's kind of a funny like interaction there, because can you imagine like the disciples like, what? Like that, that's like, that's, yeah, like that's like, what are you talking about? Like over there. So he I gotta remember all my so then there's a bunch of like important numbers that happen. One, that there's 5 loaves and 2 fish, and also he separates everyone into different groups of 100s and 50s. That is quoting Exodus right there, most likely. It's Exodus 18. Okay, we got time. We'll go through that. Exodus 18. Exodus 18:25. Let's see. There it is. 18:25. Now, they're all outside of Sinai. This is after the manna and all that stuff. It's kind of just in the midst of all the stuff right before the 10 Commandments is given. And so it says that Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said, and he chose capable men from all Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, 50s, and 10s. And they served as judges of the people at all times. In the difficult cases they brought to Moses but the simple ones they decided for themselves. So like they're over there, but it's kind of a similar wording that tens, 50s, and hundreds is this idea. So what I was kind of reading about before all this with this section is that it's almost kind of reminiscing to that. Now, when you think about how this narrative is now reminding you of the Exodus, so we just got away from a feckless leader in Herod. We just got him. They had just gotten away from a feckless leader in Pharaoh. And now Jesus' disciples have kind of taken some reins, and they have gone out and told people the good news about the kingdom of God and all that stuff. And they've come back now, and now all these people are kind of around, and we see that this story is of kind of an empowerment in the leadership in Israel, and we see an empowerment in the leadership of the disciples in here, and giving them something to eat. And then they ask, well, how, he goes, how much do you have? And they're like, we have 5 loaves and 2 fish. And what was 5 loaves and 2 fish? That meant something. Yeah. And then they take up 12 baskets at the end. That's like all of God's people, right? And then the 5 loaves and 2 fish. What? I read something that meant something. The 38. Yeah, it was like, it's like 2 tablets. Yeah, the number 7. It's a 7 there. That's an important number. Let's see. Let me look. It's making me look at a different note on a different page. Which, come on, guys, don't be cheap. Make the Bible 2 more pages and include the notes on the page. Let's see, 1420. Because I read something. Let's see here. What did I read? I read something. I thought it was in this Bible. It was, what's the 5? The 12 is obvious. 5 and 2 is also 7. Oh, yeah. Okay. So the 5 Pentateuch, gosh, which could stand for all of the law, like the first 5 books of the Bible, and then the 2 tablets of the 10 Commandments. I don't know. It can be kind of a stretch, but is Jesus in this connection between feckless leader, with Pharaoh and with Herod here, the success of kind of giving the disciples more authority, authority connected with the Exodus story, with leaders there getting more authority, and then right after that we receive the law. We had received the 10 Commandments, and it's almost kind of hearkening back to the first 5 books of the Bible, which is called the law. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Okay. Yeah. So she says that's some Sunday school lesson. So Gloria wrote in her Bible, she said it comes from a long time ago, that it's a turning point of God with the Jews, so if that pastor or Bible study leader or whoever was leading that, I could see where they would be hearkening back to that Exodus story again, and how it's God moving, like connecting all these different parts of the stories. Like, it's pretty obvious by the 150s to 50s and all that stuff that God is talking, that they are talking about Exodus there. Like, it's making that connection. And so they are talking about how God has saved everyone in the past, and they're looking forward again to Jesus saving. So it's kind of interesting, and it's in that story that we all know. We know the feeding of the 5,000, right? But it's very rare that's like, oh man, this is actually kind of quoting things from well-known stories in the Bible. So the thing is the Pentateuch, which is five. That's the five books of the first books of the Bible. Those books in the Old Testament to the Hebrew people, that is like the important stuff. Those first five books, and so then you have like the two tablets with the commandments on them. So that's probably a good representation of that with the 5 and 2, and then that also equals 7. So you got good things just all around in this time. So, and then the number of the men who had eaten were 5,000, and that's an interesting number, the 5,000 there. I don't know what's significant. It's suspiciously half of like the exclamation point type of thing. So I don't know exactly what they're trying to go for that there. It is just a lot of people, and there are thousands in it, you know. Yeah, and it could be, they're talking about 5,000 men, not talking about women and children. So there could be a ton of people there. So I don't really know what to do with the number 5,000. There's obviously probably something behind that because it's weirdly specific. Or it could be like that's what was going on with the people at that time, and which that's a ton of people. That's a ton of people. So I don't know. Did anyone have anything they'd like to add or have a question about this section before we go on to the next one? All right. So this is the next kind of funny story, and let's see if we can kind of see the funniness in it. So verse 45. Immediately Jesus made his, remember, immediately. Like this isn't like, oh, we waited around, got Starbucks, it was a long line. You know, immediately Jesus made his disciples get into a boat and go ahead of him to Bethsaida while he dismissed the crowd. After leaving them, he went up on the mountainside to pray. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on the land. And he saw his disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Shortly before the dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them. But when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought it was a ghost, and they cried out because they all saw him and were terrified. So, like, think about the way Mark is writing this. Like, he was going to walk down the lake, and he was just going to pass by them. Like, he's like, let's see if I can freak him out. You know, like just walk by. Like, that's a weird thing. Like that's why is it worded like that? Like over there. And so I think it's meant to be kind of funny. And the disciples see him, and we see that kind of the culmination of the joke is that they think he's a ghost, and they all get terrified. And immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." Then he climbed, which that "do not be afraid" is kind of resonating with like most of the prophets, especially Isaiah. That's kind of that same message that's in those. And then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down, and they were completely amazed, for they had not understood about the loaves, and their hearts were hardened. So if you don't think that this is about Pharaoh and Exodus beforehand, it talks about how their hearts were hardened, which that's a Pharaoh move. That's a Pharaoh move. So they don't understand that God is saving them from maybe their feckless leaders type of thing. So that's when they had crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret and anchored there. As soon as they got out of the boat, the people recognized Jesus, and they ran throughout the whole region and carried their sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into the villages, towns, and countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces, and they begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed. And so we kind of go back to remembering the woman who had the bleeding issue, touching the cloak. So so we have this Jesus walking on water, and I think this is kind of connected to, like, Jesus is fully in kind of, we're seeing God working in his salvation again. And something I just thought of with Jesus walking on the water, is that a connection to, like, Red Sea and the parting of the Red Sea with waters and all of that? It even mentions great winds, and they were suffering through the great winds. That's a bit of a stretch, but we're already, like, just enamored with this story of the Exodus. And he even says that their hearts were hardened. Like, it's already asking us to picture all of that. So he's, and all of these maneuvers are how God is using the people on the ground, is using the disciples, using Moses, using all these things to save him, but God is still distinctly involved in the Exodus. And I think we're seeing that same kind of thing play out here, is that these stories are now connected here together to tell about how God is saving his people. I don't know. Does anyone have any thoughts about that at all? Let's see. Trying to decide what if we should go on or not. So
You guys decide. You might have some place to go. Ed and I are kind of a captive audience.
yeah. Well, Gloria was just saying, like, isn't it odd that the disciples just kind of forgot about what had just happened with the loaves and the fish, and that they're like, they just saw that happen, and now they're scared about what's going on in the lake. And I think that's a good point, and I think that's,
Well, one thing that can be said about humans, we all have short memories.
yeah. And I think that's, yeah, I think we're meant to see ourselves in all these characters around Jesus. Like, that's
Well, isn't that part of what God gave Adam and Eve and everybody following? Choices,
Free will.
free
yeah,
will.
and so, yeah, and that's, and I think that whole idea of, like you said, Midge, like having a short memory, I think that's part of it. And like, even though something amazing happened to you right then, it's like, oh, but that was yesterday, that's not right now. That was a couple hours ago. I have new concerns now. And I think, like, if we still want to play off of that Exodus metaphor, we see God's people constantly complaining and losing the plot all through the Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy narrative. Like, they can't get it right, and they keep on forgetting and all of those things. And so I think maybe the disciples may be playing a part in that, and in how they're forgetting. And we can then put ourselves into the story and go, well, yeah, like, I forget a lot too. I forget a lot too. And I forget a lot too. And I think the Herods of the world have more power than they actually do. I think that yeah, Jesus can do anything, but when the wind's against me a little bit, I start to complain. Like, that's like all those things. I think we can remember ourselves in these stories. So that's good. That's good. I don't know. Does anyone have anything else? We may end a little early today because the next story is pretty involved, and we don't have a ton of time. So, but no, this was pretty cool. So we talked about feckless leaders, but that's always been the way. It's always been the way, and we see how there's again the Gospels are telling the story of the Exodus. Again, like if all I talk about is Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the Exodus and Moses and all of that stuff, it's because this all they talk about here. And yeah, it's all big cycles, is what Gloria said. And so what I think is funny about that is in January, or when we get back, we're doing another series on Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and Joseph. But it's a good one. It's called Faith and Family Dysfunction. And we look,
Oh
yeah,
boy.
yeah. We figured it would be good to do it after Christmas, and
You don't want to do it before Christmas, that's
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
It's we're kind of looking at the stories of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, but looking at them through the dysfunction of their family, and so like we talk about bitterness, talk about triangulation, talk about self-differentiation, like things like that, as we look at the stories of all that. This is a recycled sermon series. We did it back in 2014, I think. And
You're getting to the point where a lot of them are.
easy there. Listen, we had a lot
You've been there for a while.
We did this, yeah. Well, we occasionally get it. We're running out of material, good material that we had
It's a big
before.
Bible.
But we have new stuff. Let's see what we did. Like nostalgia was new. Nostalgia was new.
Trust me, at this point in my life, it's all new.
Yeah.
Now, can I ask a question that's not related to the Bible study? You know that I keep in touch with Greta.
Oh yeah.
And lately, I've been finding that that's extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting to the point where a one-to-one contact with Greta probably isn't going to happen very often.
Oh, really?
So I'd like to ask you and everyone to keep me in the loop as to how she's doing.
Oh, really? Did you have a rough conversation with her?
Well, I couldn't reach her for a few days,
Hmm.
and it turned out that she dropped her phone. She couldn't reach it with her grabber, so she couldn't reach her phone for a couple of days. So when I tried to call, it went to voicemail.
Oh.
And I'm not directly in contact with Jeff, her son,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's appropriate to try that or not.
Yeah.
But I just would like to know how things are going with her.
It's
From time to time.
I should probably call her before Christmas. I haven't talked to her. I don't know. It's probably been 3 weeks now.
Right.
But yeah, she's. I don't. Sometimes you have a conversation where she seems really with it. And
Well, if I remember from our years with Ed's mother, I often wondered what goes through their mind when their mind is working as opposed to when it's not.
yeah,
So
yeah, and that's. I mean, it's not just a light switch, It's
no,
all,
and it's not ever going to get any better,
yeah, and
and
so
we know that.
yeah, and so
But
I someone told me they had a conversation with her and said, you keep thinking it's going to be better somewhere else, and it's probably not going to be.
no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
And so I can't remember who it was, but someone had that conversation with her. I don't know how long that conversation will last, but
Well, the other thing this morning was that her hearing aids were sent out. So she didn't have her hearing aids. So she not only had the mind problems, it was the hearing problems.
Yeah.
And it got out of hand.
Yeah.
And one more thing on another, I just received a text message from our grandson, whose uncle on his mother's side just passed this morning by way of COVID.
Oh man.
So if And I know that you guys always put all that on your prayer list.
Yeah,
So
if you could send that to Kevin, he'll make sure.
I will do that. I will do
And
that.
and keep Gloria's family and
I do that. Gloria's in my prayer. The last thing I do at night, if I remember to do it at all, is to say my prayers. And
Yeah,
you guys are all in them.
yeah. So that's it's been a tough time.
Yes.
Gloria said that she said it was kind of a nostalgia trip last night with her
Yes.
granddaughter asking about nostalgia and all of that stuff, asking what it meant because she's in kindergarten. Yeah,
Well,
asking what
the
word.
other blessing too is that in this day and age, like with me, this certainly isn't what I thought retirement would be.
Yeah,
But with all the advances in the things and your knowledge, we're able to keep ahead of it, and we're able to know, sometimes good and sometimes not so good, what's going on in all of our lives and our families.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a blessing.
That's good. I'm
And
glad you guys have been able to be involved here still and watch the services and all of that.
well, it has helped us in that we haven't been able to physically get out and find a home church.
Yeah.
So you're still our home church. You're stuck with us.
You're
So is
stuck
this
with
the
it?
last Bible study this year?
Yeah, this will be the last Bible study this year. I don't know when the next one will be. It'll either be that first full week or it'll be the week after. It kind of depends on what that week looks like. So kind of be watching
Just-
emails.
Just
Yeah,
send us an email.
this will be the last one in this year. So it'll either be the 7th or the 14th. It'll probably be the 7th. But we'll have to see what that week looks like. Kind of coming back and all those things. But you guys have a great Christmas.
You
The
too.
same to you. Stay safe,
You too.
stay healthy, and we'll keep praying.
When's the Christmas Eve service streaming?
4.
4:00.
4, yeah. So we're doing the
That's-
earlier one for the stream. We figured that'd be
That's not
better.
the one with the Korean people participating.
No, it's not. They're not doing music this year anyway.
Right.
So-
We heard you. We saw
Yeah.
that somewhere.
So that's so and getting it 4:00 and also if anyone official is watching from Synod, me not having another pastor from another denomination on the live
Participating.
stream may be beneficial towards my career.
Future?
Yeah, yeah. And
we
so
love you.
so
We love you in
that
spite of it
also
all.
played
They're the ones that are wrong.
yeah, exactly. Them. But yeah, so that was one of the reasons why we made that decision. And also I think it's just better doing it early. Then whoever wants to watch it will then can pull it up and watch it whenever they want to.
And then they can go to a party.
Yeah, then they can go to a party or they can do Christmas, and it just makes it a little bit more flexible for everyone involved. So that's what we're doing. That's what
Okay, good. Well, Merry Christmas to you and to
Merry
Gloria.
Christmas. We will see you guys soon. Have a good Christmas.
You too.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.